you're revolving, what happens is that slit opens up more and more and more. So you see more and more of that reality, and we assume that we see different realities. They're not very different realities, but rather a very extended, broad view of one very large reality.
Este Itzhak Bentov, inginer și mistic, cercetător și inventator intuitiv, ciudat de necunoscut dacă punem în balanță mareția descoperirilor sale. A deținut numeroase brevete de invenție pentru diverse dispozitive medicale și s-a ocupat de inginerie biomedicală. Însă adevărata sa pasiune a fost conștiința umană. Este omul care a decodat realitatea, a făcut-o publică în anii 70 pentru ca mai apoi, la scurt timp, să-și piardă viața în cel mai grav accident aviatic petrecut pe teritoriul Statelor Unite. Teoriile lui par științifico-fantastice, dar culmea, au fost folosite ulterior chiar de binecunoscuta agenție americană de informații CIA. Itzhak Bentov propunea o viziune revoluționară despre cosmos, conștiință și realitate. A încercat să construiască un model al universului care să satisfacă nevoia unei imagini cuprinzătoare despre ce este existența noastră. Intuiția l-a condus spre practica regulată a meditației, dar Bentov nu era un simplu mistic vorbind despre spiritualitate. Ceea ce a făcut cercetările sale convingătoare a fost pregătirea sa ca inginer și fizician. A adus studiul conștiinței în laborator, a experimentat, măsurat, analizat, explorat. A creat o punte între materie și spirit, între știință și misticism. Bentov nu le vedea ca opuse, ci ca două limbaje diferite care converg spre o aceeași direcție. Realitatea este multistratificată pe nivele. Există dimensiuni dincolo de percepția noastră obișnuită care pot fi accesate când intrăm în stări extinse de conștiință. Vă propun în cele ce urmează un video care vă provoacă serios cunoștințele și credințele pe care le aveți despre realitate. Rămâneți cu mine, merită! Bună tuturor! Ce mai faceți? Sper că sunteți bine. Există deja foarte multe studii care arată că oamenii antrenați în meditație pot atinge stări mentale în care creierul lor emite unde teta, deci se află într-o frecvență cuprinsă între 4 și 8 cicluri pe secundă. Am realizat și eu un video pe tema undelor cerebrale, aici sus aveți linkul. Ei bine, în timpul acestei reverii teta, mai ales atunci când practici asta constant, începi să percepi imagini vii, simbolice sau nu, tulburătoare, înălțătoare sau neobișnuite. Itzhak Bentov era instruit ca inginer mecanic, dar la un moment dat a început să practice meditația pentru ca la scurt timp să descopere că poate experimenta stări înalte de conștiință în mod voluntar. El a realizat că dacă o astfel de stare a creierului este controlată conștient și focalizată pe o problemă specifică, imaginile primite ar contribui la rezolvarea ei. Unii ar spune că asta este imposibil, alții că este magie, iar alții ar cataloga o astfel de idee ca fiind absurdă. Eu aș spune că este un normal al ființei umane care ne-a fost ascuns. Să nu uităm că în felul acesta au apărut multe dintre invențiile importante ale lumii noastre. De exemplu, chemistul german Friedrich August Kekulé a descoperit forma inelului de benzen care a pus bazele chimiei organice, nu ca rezultat al unei munci asidue, ci datorită unor imagini spontane care au apărut în timp ce era pe jumătate adormit. Întâmplarea este tratată ca anecdotă în lumea științei. Iată cum am fost condiționat să abordăm astfel de aspecte. Ațipind lângă șemineu, Friedrich August Kekulé a văzut atomii dansând și formând lanțuri și apoi un șarpe care își mușcă propria coadă. Imaginea șarpelui care își mușcă din coadă este un simbol străvechi denumit Ouroboros și reprezintă ciclul etern al distrugerii și renașterii. Acest moment de inspirație l-a ajutat să-și dea seama că molecula de benzen nu este un lanț deschis, ci o structură ciclică închisă. Sau, un alt exemplu, Nikola Tesla, în timp ce se plimba prin parcul central din Budapesta și recita versuri din Faust al lui Goethe, Tesla a avut o epifanie bruscă în care a descoperit câmpul magnetic rotativ, fundamentul fizic și conceptual care a făcut posibilă ulterior inventarea generatorului și a motorului de curent alternativ. Sunt multe astfel de exemple. Poate că veți spune că sunt categorii aparte de oameni, că sunt genii. Așa ne-am obișnuit noi să etichetăm, însă abilitatea lor adevărată a fost aceea de a accesa alte realități, de a lua de acolo răspunsurile la întrebările lor și de a le pune în practică în lumea noastră 3D. În asta constă și secretul. Toți ceilalți oameni, cei mai mulți de altfel, nu accesează astfel de stări pentru că nu știu, nu vor sau le este frică. Cei care o fac, voit sau spontan, ajung să fie catalogați de societatea în care trăim ca genii sau bolnav mental. Este în funcție de capacitatea celui care experimentează percepții lărgite de a integra aici în realitatea 3D celelalte realități și deci de a se încadra în standardul societal.
These are people who have expanded perception and hence they can see a reality which ordinary people at this stage of evolution are not able to see.
Correct.
What is the nature of that reality which they're able to see?
Well, that is classified as a non-physical reality sometimes. We can take an example. Say, let's take a simple example. The family sitting at dinner table and say there's a kid, maybe 15 years old, 16 years old, and he looks up and suddenly he says to his mother, "Hey, Ma, look at, there's our dead grandmother is standing in the corner." Mother looks around and says, "No, there's no grandmother there." And she says, "Well, kiddo, there's something wrong with you. You need help."
You're crazy.
So you're crazy. So she takes him off to the friendly neighborhood psychiatrist, and same thing happens. The psychiatrist will ask him, "Well, kiddo, what do you see?" "Well, you'll see, well, don't you see, doctor, over there in the corner, don't you see this person standing there?" Well, the psychiatrist turns around, "No, there's no such thing." Well, and then psychiatrist says, "Oh, young fella, you're in troubles," and then he writes out a little prescription for a little Thorazine or electroshock or whatever, and pretty soon, in a matter of 2 weeks, kid is back in shape, very normal.
No longer sees the
No longer sees anything.
Yeah.
So the process has been reversed. This is called a psychotic episode or acute schizophrenic break or whatever it is.
And what you would say is that there's a good chance that that kid is seen.
Very good chance that the kid has a spontaneous opening of his senses.
So that the evolution has been rushed up or hurried up?
Yeah. Now, this actually happens. There are techniques to do this. But the Eastern people, the yogis, have developed systems to do this, to push the nervous system rapidly. But it happens very often spontaneously without someone trying to do anything about it, and it just happens. And then, naturally, in the olden days, these kinds of things used to be called miracles. And nowadays, there's no more miracles. Well, let's take this.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because you think of, what you call the spontaneous opening of expanded awareness.
Correct.
Right? I mean, that's sort of a lot of words to say something. But in an earlier time, it was called a miraculous occurrance.
Yeah.
Elevated consciousness.
Right.
A time of great revelation, of God speaking to you.
Now, take like this fellow, St. Paul, yeah? He's going or walking or riding to Damascus in the olden days. And suddenly this big ball of white light descends, and Jesus standing in the ball of light, and he says, "Hey, why don't you lay off of my people and stop doing whatever you're doing," and all that. And he's very impressed, and he's even blinded, and he falls down, and one thing and another. But anyway, he makes it somehow to Damascus, and there he starts a big campaign, and he talks about his experience and the big public relations thing, and he got the thing going. He got the church built, and the Judeo-Christian ethic came out of this, and bingo, and all the things that, that go with this. So we've got something.
Yeah.
Now, suppose the same thing would happen, and this fellow, so St. Paul, say, is driving down on Route 128, yeah? Driving down.
Route 128 doesn't go to Damascus.
Well, it doesn't go to Damascus, it goes to
It goes to Dedham.
So, okay, so then this fellow is driving, and suddenly this big ball of light descends in front of his windshield, and there's Jesus standing in front of him, and he gets very, very impressed, and his driving naturally gets kind of wobbly. And so, sure enough, there's a cop behind him, and he says, ooh, you know, and gets him off to the side of the road. And he says, sir, may I have your license and registration and all that? And this fellow is so impressed, and he keeps babbling something about Jesus and all that. And the cop says, well, you must be driving under the influence, right? So he arrests him and takes him in the station.
Uh-huh.
Then what happens is that he comes to the station, and then they tell him, well, he still is under the influence, you see. So they call an ambulance and send him off to the mental hospital. The reception desk, they interview him, a very short interview, and the guy puts down in the logbook that the fellow came in with an acute psychotic or schizophrenic episode with religious overtones. That's it.
Uh-huh.
And this is what we did to the miracle. So we took the miracle and we ground it down really to gray powder. So no more miracles.
Am fost învățați că miracolele puteau fi înfăptuite doar de Isus și adepții săi, că îngerii sunt acele făpturi întâlnite mai mult în mediul ecleziastic, în desene și picturi pe pereții bisericilor sau pe icoane, sau menționați în rugăciuni în care nici nu credem cu adevărat, că mitologia este neverosimilă, sau dacă a fost ceva adevărat din toate acestea, au fost doar atunci. De câteva sute de ani încoace suntem dominați de știința fizicii cantitative, care ne-a îndepărtat de orientarea mentală sau emoțională și a accentuat separarea și materialismul. Rațiunea a luat locul intuiției, iar tranziția a fost completă în momentul în care Sir Francis Bacon a anunțat că realitatea ni se prezintă doar atunci când acordăm atenției lumii simțurilor, singura care ne oferă realități. Ironia este că lumea simțurilor ne relevă de fapt mai puțin de 1% din tot ce există.
The nervous system is that thing that gives us the picture of our realities. That is, our realities, that reality which you see all around you, the flowers and the chairs and the microphones and the teacup, is given to us by our senses.
Yeah.
We don't see light which is beyond UV and beyond infrared. We hear only a limited scale of vibrations, like, for instance, we hear anywhere from 52 to 20,000 maximum.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In other words, all our senses are limited. So, with these limited senses, we naturally are seeing through a very narrow kind of tube or very narrow slit in the total reality there is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as you're evolving, what happens is that slit opens up more and more and more. So you see more and more of that reality, and we assume that we see different realities. They're not very different realities, but rather a very extended, broad view of one very large reality.
Itzhak Bentov a înțeles că întreaga materie vibrează și a perceput realitatea ca o hologramă gigantică interconectată, ceea ce înseamnă că fiecare mică celulă unitară din marea structură, cosmosul, conține informația despre întreaga structură mare. Potrivit lui Bentov, cu cât celula unitară este mai mică, cu atât informația este mai difuză, dar tot există. El susținea că noi, ființele umane, ca parte a acestei mari structuri, conținem informația despre univers exact așa cum fiecare celulă din corpul nostru conține informația despre întregul corp. Implicațiile sunt imense. Una dintre acestea este că moartea s-ar putea să nu fie sfârșitul.
We have this notion of a soul. Most people won't talking about the soul. It's a kind of non-physical thing, highly theoretical. And so when you go to church, you take this soul out of the closet and polish it up a little bit, and then you go to church and you are one with your soul. Then you come back and put back in the closet till next week. So that's about the idea of a normal person, the soul. But actually that's not the case. I mean, we don't have souls, but it's just the other way around. A soul has us. So that is that thing that evolves, the permanent, eternal thing is the soul, and the body is a kind of disposable thing. That is, you use a body like a car for 80,000 miles, 100,000 miles, and you junk it, and that's it. You get another one. So it's the driver is the soul who uses the body for a while, and then he runs it into the ground, and he gets another one sooner or later.
And so it's the soul which is experiencing evolution, and not our personality, not our physical existences.
That is, the soul is the repository of information that we gather during a lifetime. Well, I'll tell you, maybe we should draw another diagram. Physical bodies are here, another physical body, another physical body, and this is Joe, and this is Jim, and this is Sarah, etc. Now, clearly, this is the physical level, yeah? Now, on this physical level, we're all separate. You sit there, and I sit here, and we're all separate. Now, let's draw another level. This level is slightly higher, and let's call this the level of the soul, yeah? Well, there will be some mingling here. Let's draw this person as extending to practically infinity this way. Now look what happens. At the physical level, we're separate, and there's this much distance between us. Let's say that on the soul level, this person extends this much, and the other person gets slightly mixed in with him. That is, the souls are, in a way, in touch with each other. Okay, they overlap, these two lines. Now let's go now to a higher level, and let's call this, say, the level of the higher self, which is kind of a boss of that soul. There, what we find is that this fellow's higher self extends this much, and the other fellow's extends this much. There is more overlap between them.
Right.
On the very highest level, which is the high spiritual level, we are basically overlapping completely. Everybody is overlapping everybody else. In other words, everything and everyone is everywhere. In other words, we've become omnipresent. This is a state of highly spiritual perfected beings, or gods, you may call them. Okay?
Okay, and so that we exist on all of those simultaneously.
On all of those simultaneously,
So then,
but we're not aware of them.
In your view, then, when we see each other as separate entities, that's only seen on one plane of reality.
Correct. And so whether we like it or not, we're all evolving towards godhood. But it takes eons, so don't hold your breath.
Is that the purpose of evolution?
Naturally. Because at that point, you start understanding how the system works. And one of the good things about this system is that the system wants to teach you about itself.
What does
It's
it
a
want
good
to teach
system.
you? Yeah?
Yeah.
What does it want to teach you?
Well, if you are omnipresent and you're all-knowing, that is the state which the system wants you to be in. Because the system is an intelligence or information gathering system. And it's also freely distributing that information.
In your view,
Yeah.
we all started off somewhere a long time ago in which there was sort of undifferentiated matter, which slowly, millions and millions and millions of eons, evolved until a very complex organism that we now call a human being. And it has a nervous system which we at this particular point in time understand as being sensitive to certain levels of reality through our eyes, our ears, our nose, other sensory perception. And that's sort of what we call material, ordinary reality that enables us to drive cars and do our work every day. However, there is an evolutionary movement that will continue to push us beyond where we are today. And the thing which is going to be pushed is our soul, and that at some point we will have these experiences of elevated consciousness in which higher realities are not only seen but lived, and ultimately we come into perfection.
Whether we like it or not.
Yeah? Can we speed that up by doing anything?
Yeah. Well, you use the meditative techniques which push the nervous system a lot faster than the normal evolutionary rate. Those techniques are available, but you don't need to do anything, it's going to happen
It's
anyway.
going to happen.
Itzhak Bentov a murit la doar câteva luni după ce a acordat acest interviu celebru și la un an după ce publicase prima sa carte. În 1979, Itzhak Bentov urma să aibă o întâlnire cu o echipă de cercetători japonezi, cărora, cel mai probabil, avea să le prezinte descoperirile sale. Zbura de la Chicago la California cu American Airlines, dar doar la câteva secunde după decolare, unul dintre motoare s-a desprins, iar avionul s-a prăbușit. A fost cel mai grav accident din istoria Statelor Unite, iar Bentov a fost una dintre cele 273 de victime. Pentru unii un accident tragic, pentru alții o coincidență tulburătoare, având în vedere natura cercetărilor sale. Dar moartea nu i-a îngropat cunoașterea, a lăsat două cărți excepționale, Pe urmele pendulului sălbatic și cartea cosmică despre procesul creației. Pe aceasta a doua nu a reușit să o termine, fiind finalizată de soția sa, Mirtala Bentov, care a adunat toate manuscrisele, notițele și schițele sale.
He saw reality as a hologram. It's a totality in which every part is related to every other part, and they're all interdependent. And this hologram he perceived as vibratory in nature. In other words, as he said, it's an off and on reality, and we are only part-time here. It's an oscillating field. And it may appear to us as a continuous reality, whereas in fact it's like a film composed of separate frames. He looked at reality as a whole as consciousness itself. Consciousness in the state of evolution, of unfolding itself to know itself. And there is nothing outside it. So that the physical reality, the manifest world, is only another expression of that reality, which is consciousness or existence itself, aware of itself. And matter is then another expression of consciousness at different levels of evolution. So that one can look at reality as being composed of an innumerable number of levels of reality, each level having its corresponding level of consciousness. And reality is perceived by those who are experiencing it only on the level of their own evolution of the nervous system. Ben designed this diagram of the levels of consciousness in creation because every level, as we saw before, reflects a state of evolution of matter on that level. And there is an indigenous population on all these levels that relates to that level. And our human band is only over here. So he looked at consciousness in its totality. If this vector here represents the quality of consciousness, this one represents the quantity of consciousness, or the capacity of a nervous system to react to stimuli. So here we put the atom, the virus, the plant, and an animal, and finally a human being. So this is where we are in the range of things, and there are many other levels above, and of course it's all going towards the ultimate state of the absolute that we talked about before, and they're all contained within it. Consciousness is modular. A larger consciousness contains a lesser consciousness. We also see here these curves, and these are called energy exchange curves, and they peak in the middle of each band, which means that the interaction with the environment here is the highest. And I find myself, and you find yourselves, in this physical reality because our energy exchange curve is highest in this level. However, we can also interact with the neighboring realities, but as you can see, the curve here tapers off so that we're not interacting as clearly and as well in those other realities, but still we do. And our nervous system is capable of spanning all these levels, except that we seem to be tuned only to this physical reality, and like a radio set, we can receive all the others, but we keep listening to this one. But it's up to us to tune into all the others as well. Now, the reality below us is the animal, plant, mineral. Those are the realities that Castaneda talks about, for example, in his books, the interaction with those realms. And the upper part is interacting with the next level to the human band, which is the so-called emotional level or astral. There are different names for these levels, and it doesn't really matter as long as we know what it means. And the next level is the mental, then the intuitive or causal, and so forth. There are certain characteristics about these levels, and we interact with all of them, and we can function in all of them. The one next to us is the emotional level. And this is where we go in sleep. As Ben said, this is a preview of coming attractions, because when we die, this is where we go, and we all interact on this level. The next level is the mental level, and emotions, in fact, are not allowed there, so that before you can cross the boundary, it's almost as if there is a customs official who says, any emotions to declare, and down you go if you can't release emotions that are negative. Actually, the emotions such as fear or anger. However, love, which sometimes is perceived as an emotion, is what Ben called is the glue of the universe. And without it, in fact, you can't even go higher. So when you abandon those emotions, you can enter the mental level, and here your reality is what you think. It is also so on our level, but to a lesser degree. But here you're actually creating your reality by what you think. The next level is the intuitive level, and this is where we all interact, and people of creative professions particularly visit those areas, and on that level they pick up a lot of information and they bring it down. The creative aha moment of discovery, for example, of an inventor or an artist, when suddenly a solution comes or an image comes, is in fact something that one perceived on this intuitive level. And as you saw before, our time expands on higher levels. So there was an enormous amount of time here to study the entire situation and then to bring it down. But when you bring it down, it appears like a flash, the aha moment, whereas in fact you spent a lot of time there getting ready for it.
Itzhak Bentov a combinat experiența sa în inginerie cu interesul pentru meditație și a început să studieze modificările fiziologice induse în corpul uman de către stările înalte de conștiință. A inventat instrumente pentru a studia schimbările din organism atunci când o energie crește prin coloana vertebrală, un concept cunoscut în tradițiile orientale sub numele de energia Kundalini.
This chart shows an experiment that he did with a subject sitting on a chair that had a device attached to it called ballistograph. And the ballistograph is something that picks up micro vibrations of the body. So the large curve that you see reflects the motion up and down of the subject as the breathing occurs. And then the small wiggly lines superimposed on that indicate the heartbeat. The lower part of the chart shows the same individual in a state of deep meditation, which also means deep relaxation. And look what happened. The breathing is practically gone. It's a straight line. And what was a disrupted pattern of the heartbeat has turned into a regular sine wave. And looking at this as an engineer, Ben said, this is an effect of harmonization of all the frequencies within the body, and the body is now resonating like a tuned instrument. And he came up with what he called the Kundalini syndrome model. In other words, when this energy in the spine rises, the harmony occurs where the vibration turns into the sine wave at 7 cycles per second, or 7 hertz, as compared to the regular disrupted pattern. And as an engineer, he looked at the body in terms of vibrating systems or oscillators. And in this case, there are 5. The heart-aorta system, the brain itself, a cavity in the brain which is filled with fluid, a ventricle, and then the brain itself, the sensory cortex, and then all this results in an electromagnetic field around the head. A system which comes into harmony within itself becomes more powerful than others, and it will entrain, this is another term he used, it will entrain or pull after itself a system that is out of harmony. So once this oscillator or resonating system comes into harmony, it will trigger the rest one after the other. It's a domino effect. So as the heart pumps blood through the aorta, and he called the aorta the biggest plumbing in the body. So it's a tremendous impact on the body, and it shakes the body so that it vibrates. It hits the bifurcation into the legs, and a certain plane wave is reflected up. The next pulse comes down, and the plane wave and the pulse clash, and it creates a disruption in the body. When the harmonious 7 hertz vibration is set up, it seems that the heart and the lungs begin to talk to each other, and they begin to work in harmony, so that a pulse comes down and waits for the reflection to come up, and they both go up together, and then the next pulse comes down, and there is no clash occurring anymore, and the body goes into resonance, triggering the next oscillator, which is the brain. And looking at the head, again from the point of view of engineering, it's a rigid box resting on a resilient column, which is the spine. What happens is, as the body goes up and down, the skull is vibrated, and the brain, which is a gel-like substance, is floating in a fluid, the cerebrospinal fluid, so that each time the body goes up, it's hitting the skull and then goes down, and so up and down it goes, and it creates a plane wave within the brain. The brain has a characteristic called piezoelectric, which means that when it's stimulated mechanically, it develops an electromagnetic field around it, which is this field right here eventually. So this is the second oscillator, which triggers the third. This is the fluid-filled cavity in the brain called ventricle. And due to this regular vibration of 7 cycles, or 7 hertz per second, a standing wave is created, is established in the ventricle, which again creates a very harmonious frequency. And this in turn triggers the sensory cortex. This is a cross-section of the brain, and this is a cross-section of the third ventricle filled with fluid. On top of the third ventricle is a drum-like surface with a bundle of nerve fiber crossing it, which connects the right and left brain hemispheres. And this is very important, because as the fluid vibrates harmoniously, it activates this nerve fiber, and it harmonizes the 2 brain hemispheres. And we know that consciousness opens up when the synchronization of the functioning of the 2 hemispheres occurs. And then a certain current is established in the sensory cortex in the lobe of the brain. And as I said before, all this results in an electromagnetic field around the head, so that the head actually becomes an antenna capable of sending out and receiving information which it could not do otherwise. And in that state, higher perceptions become possible. And this was Ben's theory, that through the mechanism of Kundalini and the resonant state of the body, higher perceptions become available.
Această frecvență de 7 Hz este deosebit de semnificativă. Se încadrează în intervalul undelor cerebrale teta, cuprinse, după cum vă spuneam la început, între 4 și 8 Hz, care înseamnă relaxare profundă, stări meditative, creativitate sporită și expansiuni subtile ale conștiinței. În mod remarcabil, se potrivește și cu frecvența naturală a Pământului, cunoscută sub numele de rezonanța Schumann, sugerând o conexiune profundă între ritmurile corpului nostru și planeta însăși. Devenind parte din vibrația Pământului, ne conectăm la vibrația întregului sistem solar și mai departe la Univers. Aceasta este conexiunea cosmică. Pentru Bentov, meditația nu era doar despre liniștirea minții, era o metodă precisă de acordare a sistemului inimă-creier, astfel încât acesta să poată rezona cu arhitectura mai profundă a Universului. Când era acordat corect, corpul putea deveni o poartă spre o percepție extinsă, o stare în care granițele se dizolvă și realitatea este trăită ca un întreg continuu. Aceasta era prezentată nu ca misticism, ci ca un proces reproductibil. Dacă este adevărat, înseamnă că organismul uman este un instrument fin acordat, la care majoritatea oamenilor nu învață niciodată să cânte. Dar această hartă a corpului era doar începutul. Descoperirile lui Itzhak Bentov au fost folosite chiar de Agenția Americană de Informații CIA. Un program derulat de CIA în anii 80, denumit procesul Gateway, a apărut discret în 2003 în domeniul public. Sunt mai multe documente, se găsesc online, le poate accesa oricine și, cel mai probabil, CIA a demarat acest proiect pentru a explora și dezvolta spionajul prin vederea la distanță sau proiecții astrale. Adică se puteau afla informații despre competitori sau inamici fără să fie trimiși oameni fizic undeva. Documentele vorbesc despre puterea hipnozei, puterea meditației transcendentale, acelei pentru crearea coerenței inimă-creier, despre biofeedback, toate acestea reprezentând practic metodologii de modificare a conștiinței, mai exact de extindere a acesteia. Vă reamintesc că aici, pe canal, găsiți videouri pe tema coerenței inimă-creier, tehnici și meditații. Prin practicarea acestora ne putem modifica undele cerebrale, ceea ce ne permite să atragem ceea ce ne dorim, să rezolvăm unele probleme din această realitate 3D sau chiar să vedem la distanță, să ne proiectăm conștiința în trecut sau viitor și multe alte lucruri considerate fantastice, imposibile sau nebunești de cei mai mulți oameni.
We are dealing with two realities. One is this physical, solid reality that we get blue and black marks from, as he said, when we bump into it. But the information about it is given us by our senses. So that is our subjective reality. And so the two really are giving us the totality of our environment. So what is the objective physical reality? And let us look at the atom. If we magnify the atom and zero in on the electron, and now we think now we will get the answer to what physical matter is. But if we analyze the electron, all we find is an oscillating electromagnetic field. There's no physical matter as such. So we think, well, maybe the nucleus will give us the answer. And we zero in on the nucleus, and we find that it too is only an electromagnetic oscillating field in the void, because between the nucleus and the electron and outside of them, there is nothing but void, the same void that fills in the interstellar space. And the ratio of the distance between the nucleus and the electron would be analogous to a head of a pin in the middle of this room and something rotating around it 30 feet away, and the rest is void. So what is physical matter? Ben drew an analogy between the electron and the pendulum by looking at the cross-section, as it were, of the atom and comparing it to reciprocal motion. In other words, we see the electron now on this side, now on the other side of the nucleus, which would be the pendulum motion. So what happens in the pendulum? It stops, it moves, stops, and moves again. In other words, it's action and rest, action and rest. If you took an actual pendulum and would swing it and attach a pin to it, and you would draw a piece of paper under it, like this, it would describe a sine wave. Here the pendulum moved and stopped, moved and stopped. And reality really are the spaces between the points of rest. We perceive reality when there is motion. And reality is really nothing but oscillating fields in the void. And the reason I can touch this screen and I don't go through the floor is because my atoms, or the electrons of my atoms, are actually repelling the electrons of the floor. But if I would speed up my vibration, then I could very well go through the floor. So that it's the interaction between the atoms in this reality that gives us the illusion of solid matter.
Suntem mai mult decât corpurile noastre fizice. Existăm în sisteme energetice care nu sunt limitate de timp și spațiu. Putem comunica cu inteligența care ne-a creat și pe care puteți să o denumiți cum doriți voi. Și apropo, ca o mică paranteză, nu este bărbat, așa cum ne-a fost inoculat, la fel cum nu este nici femeie. Concluzia este că ne putem îmbunătăți viața și ne putem face această călătorie temporară aici pe pământ mai frumoasă. Este necesar să știm că astfel de informații ar trebui utilizate pentru a face bine, deoarece fiecare gând, fiecare emoție, fiecare faptă de-a noastră este energie care rămâne scrisă în cartea Universului. Eu sunt sigură de un singur aspect. Modalitatea câștigătoare în orice realitate este doar iubirea, pentru că acest sentiment extraordinar este, așa cum spunea Itzhak Bentov, liantul Universului. Așa că alegeți întotdeauna iubirea. Este ușor? Nu, dar este printre puținele lucruri pentru care merită cu adevărat să facem efort. Eu mă opresc aici. Dacă v-a plăcut acest video, nu uitați să dați un like și să vă abonați la canal în cazul în care nu ați făcut asta până acum. Vă aștept în videoul următor. Până atunci, rămâneți sănătoși și în pace!